And yeah, we'll take the hand on the front row. You, sir, in the red. Yeah.
Singapore and Malaysia are again embroiled in an unnecessary and potentially internecine maritime dispute. Just days after the two countries' foreign ministers met and agreed to de-escalate the issue, you have the Johor Chief Minister unilaterally deciding to visit a Malaysian vessel docked in the disputed waters. And he said that he got the unofficial blessing from the foreign minister. Earlier today, we hear Wisma Putra saying that there was no blessing and that they told him not to go. So if we take Wisma Putra's word at face value, I'd like to ask, what actions would you take against the Johor Mentri Besar? And would you put any measures in place to ensure that something like this would not happen again, one? And two, would you not agree, to Dr. Mahathir, that actions like this contribute to the perception that your government is pugnacious, that your government acts in bad faith, and that your government, in the words of Najib Razak, wants a return to the days of confrontational diplomacy and barbed rhetoric?
You're welcome to choose Najib, but unfortunately, I think you are not a Malaysian citizen, so you have no right. Are you a Malaysian?
The question wasn't choosing Najib over you. I simply quoted Najib's views on your foreign policy. The question is whether through your actions over the high-speed rail, the airspace, the maritime dispute, the Crooked Bridge, the water price revision, you want a return to the fraught diplomatic ties with Singapore that we saw during your initial tenure as PM, or if you want to go beyond that.
Well, I'll tell you this. Singapore buys water, raw water, from Malaysia. How much does Singapore pay? 1 cent. For 1,000 gallons, they pay 1 Singapore cent, equal to 3 Malaysian cents. Since 1926. You mean to say prices don't change? And then this, yes?
Malaysia has had the opportunity to revise the 1962 water agreement, and Singapore sells treated water back to Johor at a subsidized price, and we sell 11,000 gallons per day, more than what we are obligated to do under the agreement.
Well, do you think that buying water at 3 cents per 1,000 gallons and then selling it at $60 per 1,000 gallons of clean water, do you think that is fair to Malaysia, that we receive 3 cents?
It may not be fair, but out of goodwill, Singapore has sold more water at a subsidized price. We've sold 11,000 more per day than what we are obliged to, and Malaysia had the chance. You had the chance to revise the water agreement. You didn't take the chance.
I took the chance before, but Singapore refuses, and refuses also to go to the courts for that. But anywhere in the world, when you tell them that Singapore buys water at 3 cents per 1,000 gallons and then sells treated water at 50 cents to Malaysia, that is not a good deal. We get only 3 cents per 1,000 gallons. In some cases in Singapore, it is $60 per 1,000 gallons of treated water. The cost of treatment is very, very little, and yet Singapore makes tons of money. I don't like to say this openly. I like to talk to the leaders. But since you asked the question, this is grossly unfair to pay 3 cents, 3 Malaysian cents, which is equivalent to half a US cent, if the US still has cents. But when we ask to negotiate the price, because they can sell to us at a higher price also, but we want to negotiate the price that is much more reasonable. Paying 3 cents for 1,000 gallons is absurd. In 1926, when the figure was mentioned,
62. It
was okay at that time, but it's not okay now. We are different countries. We have to get back our money. For years, Singapore has benefited by buying water at 3 cents per 1,000 gallons and then selling treated water at about $60 per 1,000 gallons.
I take your point, Dr. Mahathir, but my initial question was about the maritime dispute and whether you're going to take any measures to prevent something like the Mentri Besar going into the waters unilaterally again? If you could answer that, I'd be most grateful as well. Thank you.
Well, the Mentri Besar went without our permission. He thought that it was Johor waters. That's why he went there. I mean, the reaction to his going there is quite severe, as if we are going to war. I mean, he is going to go in a ship into neutral water.
Okay, I think I'll pass on the mic to someone else, but these are not neutral waters. They are waters that even in your 1979 map that we don't recognize, you haven't actually claimed those before until you suddenly came out last year and said, oh, these are now suddenly Malaysia's territorial waters. But I'll pass it on to someone else.
It is not Singapore water either. It is international water. And the Mentri Besar can go into international water without Singapore sending warships to chase him away.
I fundamentally disagree, but I'll pass it on.